Hello and welcome to Brown X Reviews. Today I'm going to be doing a BXR mailbag request video because I haven't had any for a long time because I have about 2 followers and one of them doesn't actually watch the videos. So in this one, well, let's just have a look at the question. It's to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so let's have a quick look. Okay, this one looks a little bit like a Blue Peter question with the age at the bottom there, but here we go. So Stu Blencorn is asking, what's next for the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the exception of Spider-Man? There's a void in my life that needs filling, and you're the guys to do it, apparently. It's a pretty good question there, and I think the official answer to that will be coming very shortly, because as I record this on the 8th of May 2019, Avengers Endgame came out 2 weeks ago. And with these phases, as they call them, I don't know if you're familiar with that with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but just to very quickly recap, the first film, Iron Man, was the first film of Phase 1. The last film of Phase 1 was Avengers Assemble in 2012. Phase 2 began with Iron Man 3 and ended with Ant-Man, the original Ant-Man film, in 2015. Phase 3, the one that we're in now, started with Captain America Civil War in 2016. And originally was supposed to end with Avengers Endgame, which has just come out. That was supposed to be the last film of Phase 3. The first film of Phase 4 was going to be Spider-Man Far From Home. But I've heard, I think it was Kevin Feige said recently in an interview, that they kind of moved it and now Spider-Man Far From Home represents the last film of Phase 3. So everything that hasn't yet been announced will be in Phase 4, which makes sense because if they did Spider-Man Far From Home as the first film of Phase 4, we know there's going to be a bit of a gap compared to anything that we're used to in more recent times with these films. So it'd be weird to start Phase 4 with Spider-Man Far From Home and then just have this massive gap. It's like, why not just have that as the last film of Phase 3, and then that gap will represent the gap between Phases 3 and 4. So I think that makes more sense. Having said that, there is a box set that's coming out very soon, and it says includes all 22 films, which the 22nd film being Avengers Endgame, and it says complete phases 1 to 3 because it's got all the Marvel films in basically up till Avengers Endgame. So if that's complete Phase 3, well, wasn't Spider-Man Far From Home Phase 3? I don't know, I'm getting really confused. But that's about all we know. We don't know what else is coming out in terms of any official announcements. I mean, we know there's going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but we don't know that because they haven't announced it. They haven't said the actual release date or anything at the moment. So obviously, to answer your question, what you are asking is what is going to be in Phase 4 onwards, and when's it going to come out, because we don't know. We've got some pretty good clues. I mean, Black Panther 2, for example, probably a Doctor Strange 2. I kind of doubt there's going to be a Ant-Man 3. I just kind of doubt that. I think that they'll just use him as a supplemental character in future films. I don't think they'll give him another film on his own. And obviously Captain Marvel 2, I know some of the fans didn't really take to her. I thought she was okay, the film was okay, it wasn't amazing, but I think it warrants another sequel, I guess, as far as I'm concerned, and it made money. But we'll see about that anyway. So I think those are kind of the no-brainer ones, and obviously when you say, with the exception of Spider-Man, what do you think is going to come? Well, spoiler alert if you've seen or not seen Avengers. In fact, no, let's not do spoilers. If you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, I don't want to ruin that because I don't know whether you, the person that asked the question, has seen that. But basically, Spider-Man Far From Home, there's a trailer that's come out for that recently, and that trailer does have spoilers, by the way, for Avengers Endgame. It does mention that the Thanos snap, created a bit of a tear or something in the multiverse. And what that basically means is a multiverse. I'm sure everybody watching this is aware how that works as a theory. It's to do with parallel dimensions. So effectively, you could cross over the Marvel Cinematic Universe with anything. If you're dealing with parallel universes, you could cross it over with Star Wars, for argument's sake. I don't think they're going to do that. Kind of cool if they did. No, actually, no, it would be shit and you know it. But I think it's one of those things where, given everything that's going on at the moment with the Fox merger, the Disney Fox merger, where they are basically getting the ability back to make X-Men movies, where I said they, Marvel Studios, getting the ability to make X-Men movies and Fantastic Four movies without getting sued by Fox, because now they own Fox, so it's all good. I'm pretty sure that's the route they're going to go down. I've heard it be spoken about by people at work with Marvel Studios, that they've said there's a lot of talk at the moment about how they're going to start introducing the Fox-owned properties into the MCU, and it's kind of a no-brainer, really. One thing I will say about that, let's just talk about the X-Men specifically and how that's probably going to go forward. Pretty much the Fox X-Men franchise is a dead franchise. We do have 2 more films coming out. We have X-Men Dark Phoenix, which had been delayed again and again. It doesn't look good at all, unfortunately. The actual trailer really doesn't look great. It's dealing with the Phoenix, not the Phoenix saga, but the Jean Grey stuff, which they kind of made a mess of with X-Men 3. I think they're going to make another mess of it again with this, to be honest. Which is a shame, because I liked the characters that they brought in with X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past, but Apocalypse just kind of mangled things a little bit, and I think this one's just going to do further just damage to that character base. So that's pretty much dead. X-Men New Mutants, which is another X-Men film. It's some kind of psychological thriller in some kind of like mutant asylum with these kids. Looked interesting but didn't look great, and that film has been delayed 4 times now. It was supposed to be out in April 2018, then it got delayed to, was it no, it's February 2018. Well, no, was it April? Yeah, April 2018, then February 2019, then February 2019 to August 2019, and now it's been delayed from August 2019 to April 2020. So this film's probably never going to come out. But again, I think that's basically Marvel Studios, who now own Fox, obviously. They don't really want to be putting out bad products that are X-Men related, because that really does reduce the value of that brand. And if they're wanting to basically do a rebranding for the X-Men franchise, they don't want a film like that to come out and do damage, because people will say, oh, it's another X-Men film, we don't want to see that because it's shit, because New Mutants was a load of rubbish. So apparently they're trying to do a bit of damage control with that film, because at the same time they spent money on it, so they can't just not release it. But I think that they're really looking for a bit of damage control with that. So that to me indicates, going back to your question, that they do have intentions of putting the X-Men into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I imagine that would be in Phase 4, maybe not straight away, but maybe later down the line with Phase 4. They could just introduce a Wolverine character, not introduce the X-Men as such, but just have a movie and have a Wolverine character rebooted, obviously not Hugh Jackman, unfortunately, but just do it that way. I mean, for argument's sake, if they're introducing a multiverse, like has been referred to in the Spider-Man trailer, that could possibly leak into the existing X-Men franchise and kind of canonize the X-Men movies, because effectively it's not the same universe. It fundamentally is not the same movie universe. But that's kind of the point of a multiverse. You can cross things over if you own the rights to do that. I don't think that they will do that, but it could be done for argument's sake. Obviously, Deadpool isn't a dead franchise, and that is an extension of the X-Men franchise. So I think Deadpool possibly has a future, but how that ties in with the sort of PG-13 rated Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't know. I guess they tied it in with the PG-13 X-Men movie universe, but some of those films, it's not always been a very consistent franchise like the MCU has been, so I don't think you can really compare the MCU to the X-Men franchise that we've seen since the year 2000 onwards. So lots of theories there, really, and I think a lot of it is pretty sound. theory. Well, a lot of them are very sound theories that people have been talking about, because it does seem like a no-brainer that that's the way that they're going to go. And I think if you come back to this video in a couple of years, I think a lot of this will have come to pass. It might not be in this kind of form that we imagine it to be. Like I say, just little things like me imagining that Wolverine might be the thing to reintroduce the X-Men characters, just put that one character in. That's kind of one way they could go. I'm not saying that's where they're gonna go, but I'm pretty sure that they are going to introduce these characters into Phase 4 going forward. I think they're going to do some more cosmic things as well. I'm pretty sure that one of the first films we're going to see in Phase 4 will be Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Again, not spoiling Avengers Endgame, but there are things that happen in that going forward you have a team to be worked with. Might be the original Guardians of the Galaxy, it might not be them, they might all be dead. If you've seen Avengers Infinity War. But obviously, if you have seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. There is a team going forward that you can work with when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think a third film there is going to be the way to go forward. Possibly another Thor film, again not spoiling Avengers Endgame, because there are other ways you could do a Thor. We could be talking about another Thor character at all. Maybe not the Jane Foster version, but I don't think we're done with the Thor franchise. Let's just put it that way. I think that there's a bit of future in that, so we'll see going forward. Beyond that, my concerns for the movies going forward. I mean, I've liked everything that the MCU has put out so far, but I have been seeing some kind of hints about some of the what you might call SJW side of things and the virtue signalling that's been slightly introduced into the films. Just little hints of it, nothing major, nothing that's fundamentally put me off the films. I think some of the sort of anti-SJW reviewers have taken it to a bit of an extreme, making out that Captain Marvel is just basically a propaganda piece. I did not see that at all. I saw a few little things, don't get me wrong, some little kind of nasty little third wave feminist glimpses here and there, but it wasn't much. And I'm quite sensitive to spotting things like that as well, so if I'm really not having a problem with it, then you know it's probably not a problem. But at the same time, we know Marvel, we know the route that the comics went with this, and it didn't work out for them, unfortunately. And hopefully the movies do not go down the same route, because we don't want to start having this virtue signalling agenda that's basically putting propaganda out there. Because a lot of these people, a lot of these zealots that are out there see movies as a way of pushing their agenda and their ideas and propagandizing people. And the problem there is, whether or not you agree with whether that's a good idea or not, people know when they're being preached to, and it really does make people cringe and it puts people off. And I myself know when that's been put into films, and I don't like it. Even if I can sort of see the point, I don't want to see that in movies. Movies should be about escapism. That's kind of the problem with Star Wars as well. They've started making it relevant to the world we live in, whereas Star Wars is supposed to be about a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's escapism. We don't want to see this is an allegory for Donald Trump, and these aliens are supposed to represent Trump supporters, and the Empire is supposed to represent white supremacy. It's like, that's not what Star Wars should be about, and I am against a lot of that stuff as well, so I can see where you're coming from, but don't use these movies to brainwash people or to try to brainwash people, because intelligent people, us, we see through it. So that's my concern with the MCU. I'm really hoping that they don't go there, because I've seen a lot of the people, producers and writers and so on in the past, talk about this stuff, and I've seen slight glimpses of it in the movies so far, but nothing too troubling. But that just basically, it's not that I'm offended by that. I mean, some of it I am, to be fair. But the main point is, it just takes the enjoyment out of the film. It takes you out of the film. And if they really do go down that route for the sake of it, then count me out, guys. Seriously. Like I say, the films up till this point have been kind of redubbed the Infinity Saga. So everything to do with everything from the first Iron Man up till now relates to the Infinity Gauntlet. It's been called the Infinity Saga. There is actually a Blu-ray box set that's coming out later in the year that's got all the Marvel films up to Endgame, and it's called the Infinity Saga. So if from Phase 4 onwards they go down that shit route, I'm no longer going to consider myself a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan. I'm a fan of the Infinity Saga. Everything that they did after that point, no good. Kind of like Star Wars, I'm a fan of the original trilogy. Pretty much everything they've done since then has either been mediocre or just crap. Rogue One was pretty decent, but it's not enough. I think the bad outweighs the good when it comes to everything after the original trilogy there. So the MCU could go down the same route, and I'm really hoping that they don't. And I'm gonna try not to get pissed off by any of this stuff if they do it. But you know, it's getting worse. So with other properties and other franchises. So anyway, I'll leave it there. So I kind of ranted on a little bit. I hope that answers the question anyway. We don't know the specifics. I am expecting an announcement soon. Star Wars, which is Disney, they've announced some release dates for their next few films. They announced that yesterday, starting in 2022, so they're having a bit of a gap between films, which I think is a good idea. I think Marvel could do to have a bit of a gap. Nothing like years, but, you know, maybe just have a gap and only release one film a year, just or two at the most, because three films a year is kind of spoiling us a little bit. But it could work, but I'd suggest maybe just kind of put the brakes on a little bit there. But like I say, given some of the announcement they've been making, the delays with the Fox movies, the New Mutants movies, that kind of thing, I think they're reshuffling things. So I think in light of that, the stuff that's been announced so far with Star Wars and the X-Men stuff, and also Gambit, which is an X-Men movie, being pretty much completely wiped off the agenda now, I think that indicates they are really putting things down, and we will be getting an announcement soon, an official announcement for Phase 4 onwards. So fingers crossed it's good, fingers crossed it's not a virtue signalling agenda, and fingers crossed they're bringing back a lot of the characters that we like, which to me is pretty much all of them. Maybe not Captain Marvel so much, because she was a bit resting bitch face, and that was about all she brought to the role. Unless she wants to maybe do something like Smile, maybe, in the film, I don't know. Anyway, I'm seriously rambling on now, so I'm going to leave it there. Thanks a lot, Stu, for the mailbag request. I hope this was insightful enough for you. Unfortunately, I don't have anything official, but watch this space. Thank you very much for watching.